Hey guys, happy Thursday. I hope everyone had a good night of DFS last night. There was a big slate of games. A lot of guys went off. A lot of high value plays. A lot of points scored. If you scored 300 on a normal night, you cashed last night. Probably not, depending on where you played. Definitely not if you're in a tournament. It can be frustrating getting a higher point total and not cashing, but that's just one of those nights last night with the matchups. But I'll get into that in a sec. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get alerts when I post. I'm posting more videos now with picks and reviews, and the whole purpose of the channel is to help beginners, and not just beginners, everyone, just to improve on their DFS playing, primarily in NBA, but also in NFL and all around, just to improve picks and everything like that. So I wanted to start off with what I do and what I want to, when I make picks and I give out picks. What I'm looking for is I do cash games instead of tournaments, so the picks are primarily for that unless I say otherwise. But I'm looking for value picks. Normally, I'm looking for guys that are in the 4, 5, 6,000 range, low tier to low mid tier, that have a safe floor, that are going to get about 5 times their value. So 5 times the however many $1,000 that their salary is. But they also have a high ceiling. So if they go off, they get some extra minutes, they'll hit 6 or 7 times value, and they'll help your point total overall and get you further. But that's kind of what happened last night. A lot of guys just killed it, especially in the low end. So early in the day, there was news that Vucevic was going out, wasn't going to play. So Mo Bamba got the start. He got the minutes. He did really well for his 3,700 salary. So he hit about 8 times value. And then same thing with Valanciunas in Toronto. He was out, and then Baca was out as well. So Greg Monroe had a bunch of minutes and only 4,100. That was kind of a no-brainer. He was great early, but he didn't get a lot of touches, a lot of boards later on in the fourth quarter. Though it was a close game, he could have scored another 5-8 points late in that game, but he just didn't. But still a good play, and that allowed me to fit in some higher end guys. So if you're looking at lineups that won last night, that cashed last night, most of them, if not probably the vast majority, will have had 2 studs in that lineup, because there are so many lower end value plays on the low tier. So I had Westbrook and Davis as my 2 locks. I wasn't in love with Davis just because of the matchup. Milwaukee doesn't really give up that much to big men, but I mean it's Antonio, and Davis has been going off on a regular basis for the last, pretty much all season. He's had a couple duds, but for the vast majority, regardless of the matchup, he's been gold. The only issue with him last night was he sat with an ankle injury he didn't play the whole second quarter and didn't start the third quarter. So his minutes were low. He still put up 57, almost hit 5 times value, but it didn't hurt that much because he was so highly owned. Like in this tournament, this game, he was 55% owned, so everyone kind of hurt with his lower end production. But that's really his floor. If he plays his normal minutes, he hits 70 points, 75, especially since it was a close game going down to the wire. A lot of the other plays were good. McConnell I had to fit in just because I had 3,700 left over, and he seemed to be the safest play. I was hoping that it was going to be a blowout, which it was. It was a 20-25 point game in the fourth quarter early, but McConnell didn't get any run for whatever reason. He sat most of the fourth quarter when I was hoping he would play a good amount down the stretch in that blowout, but it didn't happen. Even so, he did hit value, which is really what I needed in my lineup last night. At least the guy that helped me out the most, obviously Westbrook went off, but you kind of knew that was going to happen against that matchup with Sacramento. I mean, Sacramento just gives up points all over the place, but Kevin Anderson in Memphis had a great night. He scored almost 35 points at 4,600 salary, and that's really what you're looking for from your low-end guys, is with that ceiling. And that pushed me over. The cash line in some of the games was like 310, 315. It was just a hot night last night, and that his production put me over, even though he scored probably about 90% of his points in the first 5 minutes of the game and the last 5 minutes of the game. So that kind of was a worrisome time down the stretch towards the end of the games last night. But overall, the roster construction and how I was looking at it last night was I was going to get my two studs and in Westbrook and Davis, and then fill in around that based on what the other value plays were last night. And there were a lot of them, and so it was hard to choose. Bullock went off, and that game went to OT. He didn't really do that much in OT, but even in the regulation, he had I think he scored like 30, 31. He had 45 fantasy points. It was uncharacteristic, but you could see that going on because the matchup was so good, and he was starting. He was going to get the minutes. You could see that coming, but there were a few of those plays with Bullock and Paul George and a couple other guys that it was hard to choose. So roster construction took a little while longer, but that's what you should be looking at when you're making your lineup. You find your guys that you're going to build your lineup around, the ones that you feel comfortable with, and then build around with value plays, and then fill in what you need to with your remaining salary. So a lot of those value plays, especially lately, it seems like lately there have been a ton of injury news coming out midday and towards game time that you have to pay attention. I did one of the tips of the day earlier on an earlier video about having some kind of app or alert so that you know when someone's going to be out, different starters coming in the lineup, rotations changing, because that's going to be important with the number of minutes that each player is playing. That's how you figure out where the value is. So tonight is, I'm just gonna be real, it's terrible. I do not like these small slates. It's 2 games, and the matchups, the matchups aren't very good. I was doing a shell lineup last night. It was just not very appetizing. Nothing really stood out. The only person that really stands out even a little bit is Luka Doncic in Dallas. That's looks like a pretty good matchup. But I've really only kind of looked at the surface of that. I haven't looked any deeper into pace of play or anything like that. So I'm gonna do that later on today. I might just play light. I'll definitely get some picks out, at least on Twitter. So if you're not following me, follow me at the DFS Picks, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the alert, please. If you could, a thumbs up on the video would be greatly appreciated, and I will check in with you guys later.